there's this flawed concept of the journalist as this very sort of altruistic being, and it's something that has resulted in this dearth of conversations about how we can create better working conditions for journalists. And I'm interested in knowing, what are things that you think newsrooms or the government could do that would make journalists better protected, and that could better ensure the welfare of journalists, particularly amid increasing threats, to journalists now.
Okay, I don't think it should come from. Well, I don't. It can come from government, right? There are certain legislations that we have been pushing as a community for a long time. The FOI for one, right? There are also, but I think the reforms also have to start within newsrooms. Uh, uh, that the corporations also have to recognize that we don't just exist for interests that are for profit. That when you hire a journalist, you build a newsroom, that you decide to become a media owner, there are consequences of that. And the first consequence is that these journalists will not report to you in the very first place. Our first stakeholder is the public, our readers. Our first responsibility is to democracy and participation, etc. Providing information that would be useful to them as human beings, useful to how they also make their own decisions, democratic or otherwise. And then after that, perhaps the economics. So maybe there is also, it's happening around the world. The fault is also in how we have structured the media as part of, capitalists systems that we expect them also to be off profit first and foremost. At the same time, we have found also this particular system, this business model to be the most successful and the most kumbaga sustainable, because we've seen the news media that are commercial, that have, those are the ones that have been there for a long time. So it needs a lot of study, it needs a lot of also of reflection, and then also we can educate also the demand, because we are also responding to the people that we serve, to the readers, whatever they also ask of us. Of course, we have to protect whatever we think are the principles that have to guard our reporting, no matter the demand otherwise. But we also, it's still the ideal reader would still be someone who has the values of democracy, especially liberal democracy, and knows, and a reader that knows how to look at the news and say, this is something that has to be done, and this is something that we should stop doing. But you only get that, I guess, from also an educated citizen, or someone not formally educated, but someone who has the values of a citizen, who knows the constitution, knows his or her rights, etc.
If I may answer, so a big part of the thing that we need to start doing is to start educating precisely the public that information, verified information has its costs. Okay. First of all, there's logistics to it. There's personnel. Who are actually have to gather the information, double check it against other sources of information, just so that you are sure that this is true. So there's when with the internet, with the growth of blogging and platforms, that value to information has somehow become, or content, that was somehow diluted, and that is no longer appreciated. So you lost, like, for instance, the print the print publications in effect are struggling with circulation, and people are not paying for digital. and that not yet to the extent that it will actually allow digital to take off and finance that kind of operation. And people need to understand that. People need to understand that that's a discipline. There are people who actually have families behind them who they need to support, and therefore those people need to be paid. And they're not just volunteers. It cannot just be a volunteer operation, because like when you start uh, when you start to not think when you don't think of it as a professional operation, then that's when you go to through that slippery slope. There's I think what needs to happen is some sort of an education of the public to audience around that theme. And this is not just the journalists that need to understand and do this, but others as well, other stakeholders in democracies as well, because we try as much as possible. Like Rappler is a journalist-controlled organization, and the struggle has always been, continues to be, what kind of business model works. Do you rely on grants? Do you rely on philanthropy? Or is it possible to have to generate that kind of stakeholdership in people who value news, who value information that is verified?
Jumping off from what Miss Gemma said about involving the people, it's really important that we have us as the press have the support of the people, because really if we think about it, the power of the press comes from the people, and our protection comes from the people as well. Because we're here, we're performing a role to give information to the citizens for them to make decisions by themselves. But if we aren't here, if we're being shut down, we're being attacked, we're not being able to put out that information that they need, then there would be backlash from the people themselves, asking to bring back these news organizations, or to fight for these news organizations. But we also have, but this power from the people, it's something that we also need to earn and to maintain. And how we do that is that we continue to practice responsible journalism. We always we correct when we make faults, and we become transparent in our reports.